because she's got such definition on the edges, hasn't she?
Yeah. Yes. Before I go back to share, I've just remembered I needed to record. I need to get you guys to remind me to record every week. I think the sandpapering is refining the edges, and really kind of getting that really smooth surface. But I think her work's stunning. I don't know what you guys think.
It's beautiful, but I hope she wears a mask.
Well, if it's this dry, she should be. Maybe for the photograph, she didn't.
That sounded a bit po-faced of me, didn't it? But it's beautiful.
Well, it's like when Grace and Perry's art club was on, and almost every week at the end there'd be a scene of him sweeping up with a dustpan and brush. And I'd look at the TV and I'd go, oh, the health and safety police will be to get that.
I said exactly the same to Alan. Oh no, should be a damp cloth.
Anyway, there you go. So so back to more carving. This is a close-up of a piece by Sasha Wardell. So she uses slip casting with different coloured clays. So she'll have a plaster mould. This is another piece so you can see a whole vessel. She'll have a plaster mould and pour in. So with this piece, she would have poured in this light blue colour and then poured in this kind of greeny colour over the top. Or she'll pour in the light blue and let it dry and pour it out. Pour in the green, let it dry a bit, pour it out. So it creates a layer. And then pour in the blue, let it dry a bit, so it creates a layer, pour it out, and then the white. So it's basically creating a sort of skin of different colours, layering it up inside a plaster mould. Does that make sense to everyone?
Yeah.
And then she can carve into it to reveal the colours. So without the carving, it would just look like this top section. So here, this is just quite simple blue and white. So you can kind of almost imagine the tool, and her doing it. So I think there's a softness to that, I think, which is really nice. You can see that the clay must have been carved when it was reasonably soft, because it's got the sort of soft edges to it. I think
it's also the randomness of it as well, isn't there? That you can see that it's actually a hand has done that instead of a manufacture process.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, it's definitely got a random feel to it, which makes it feel more natural and therefore more appealing, I think. I like.
It would be easy to go through, wouldn't it? I mean, because slip casting is really thin, and by the time you get
it's very skilled. Yeah. Very skilled at that. I mean, yes, because when also if you look at pictures of her work, you can see how translucent they are at the thin points. So she must have really become very skilled at carving and not going through, and knowing just how deep you can go.
There's some interesting videos of hers online as well.
Oh, there. Oh.
Yeah, Sasha Wardell. Do you remember I went to see that lady called Angela Meller?
Oh, yeah.
So she did a couple of courses with Sasha Wardell, and she was raving on about it. So that's when I sort of did a sort of a look up and sort of found that she does courses as well. She does courses in this country, but she also does courses in France as well. She's got a house in France, a chateau rather. And so you could go down and have a week's course with her. It's something like £300-400 probably.
I think Maria's done it. Got one of those in the toilet at the studio. Sasha Wardell pot. She's got a little thing of all the pot.
Oh, I love that. I think toilet. That's fantastic.
I think she did one of those slip casting courses with her. It'd be amazing to do.
Yeah. She came and did a one-off demo at uni when I was there, I didn't make me want to do slip casting, but I did get some really good tips from her in terms of tools and things like that. But
I think the good thing about this, the slip casting would be if you wanted to repeat a shape. So I always remember Ralph doing quite a lovely hand-thrown shape for a friend who was making candles, so she could do really lovely thin porcelain molds to fill her candles in. It'd be quite nice if you sort of like had a bit of textural stuff on the surface, which was nice. If you wanted to be repeating.
I think slip casting is fantastic. It's such a good technique for making repeat pieces, and then you can decorate each piece as you like. So it has so much potential for how you finish the pieces. So it doesn't have to be about purely repetition. Okay, so this is Jo Walker. She's really lovely, and she hand carves these flowers into her pieces. And I really like the simplicity, but also the attention to detail. Have any of you seen her work before?
Yeah, I have. I love. She did. I follow her on Instagram, and she did she uses honesty quite a lot, and it's just so beautiful. She's such a good sort of drafts person as much as anything else. I love her stuff, and it's always it's a nice celadon on the inside, isn't it? Sort of a really nice sort of light blue on the inside normally.
I mean that piece is actually much darker than she normally does. Her normal pieces are this color. They are electric fired, so she's got a very good imitation celadon, I think, but I'm pretty sure they're electric fired. But it's lovely. It's just it's almost simple, and yet you realize that I couldn't do that. I just wouldn't have the skill. It would take me a long time to kind of build up that kind of sort of skill of drawing, and I think she pretty much does it freehand. So I think she draws it on first and then carves away. I think I've seen a video of her doing that. But I think that's really nice. I wasn't recording when we were talking about this, but this is back to Yo Tom's picture, and you can see a sort of close up, and you can get a sense of how dry the slip is. Actually, kind of, it's not. It looks like quite a thin layer, whereas slip normally you'd kind of build up there would be a sort of thickness to it. So I think it's quite more akin to an oxide wash. So that's interesting. Here's another picture. These are unfired. The darkness comes out when they're fired. It goes much paler because of the sort of slightly opaque tin glaze that she puts on. But you can see that she's painted these little flowers, and then scratched in there just to.
They look like greenware, don't they? So do you think they're at the greenware stage? Then she bisquifies them, then has that real thin wash. They're lovely, aren't they? Really?
Yeah. I think they're these are not fired, and they're just like you say, greenware. And then the thin white glaze that she puts on over the top makes it more milky, and the whole thing goes paler. But I liked the fact that you could really get a sense of the technique from these.
It's funny how that lovely thin wash it brings a uniformity to the whole piece, doesn't it? It sort of draws it all together.
Yes, and it really does look like fabric, doesn't it? It really has got sort of softness to it. So these are, what's her name? Pippin Drysdale. So she was mentioned in this book, so I thought I'd bring her out. But I thought, interestingly, in the book it said that she uses wax on the piece. So I think that's interesting. I think I'm not really sure how she does that, but maybe something to look into. But I liked the sort of the swirliness of the lines, and it works really well with the kind of almost spray. I think this color here looks like it's been sprayed on to get that kind of graduation of color.
Something quite feather-like.
And some of the lines are white against a dark background, and others are dark against a light background. So that's quite interesting, and your eye almost doesn't notice that to start with. I think it all looks kind of like it's flowing.
I wonder how she did that. It's complicated, isn't it, with the spray as well?
Yeah. I mean, I was trying to figure it out because I only saw it this morning. I've seen her work, but I've never thought about how she makes it. And in the book, it said that she uses wax, and so I'm intrigued. But I think it's pretty. It looks like pretty complex. There's probably quite a lot of layers of different techniques there. So yeah, and I love these. So this is Vicky Lindo. Has anyone come across?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love those. They're so cool.
They're gorgeous, aren't they? The character, you know, the mouth here and the look on the eyes of this one. It's got that righteous indignation that cats have on their faces sometimes. Like, you're doing what? And I love these like cats inside cats. I just love that. You know, in the way that this kind of creates the leg, just with the design on the surface. It's wonderful.
The other thing I love about her is that her partner, is it Brian? And they work absolutely together. I think he does all he will make the mold and will make the you know, the actual form, and then she does the decorating. It's such a team.
Oh, I didn't know that.
I think so. I might be wrong. No,
you're probably right. Yeah. Well, she's. I mean, her work is astronomical now. She's really hit the big time, and you know, you can see why. And the work is just gorgeous. It's retained that sort of lovely naivety, just the simplicity of the little dotted lines, and I love that. The look on this cat's face.
Yeah. They're brilliant, aren't they?
This is a plate that she's done, and the use of colour is really striking here. And there's a picture on her Instagram of her making it, and you can see again how dry the clay is, just from looking at the sort of shavings almost. So it must be, you know, pretty dry. You can kind of see, you know, how you can get a sense of the dryness of the clay by looking at the detail.
Wow.
So that's really nice.
And she hasn't even marked it out, has she? She's doing that all freehand by the look of it.
Oh yeah, that's a good point. Yeah.
Amazing.
That's quite interesting. Yes, I hadn't really clocked that. That's amazing. Yeah.
Yeah.
I wonder if there are just faint lines. Not really, no.
Doesn't look like it, does it?
No. Amazing. Yeah, there's some video on her Instagram of her doing the carving. So if you wanted to watch that, that's this is a still I took from a video, so you can have a look at her on Instagram. But that's my sort of quick rundown of different kinds of carving techniques. But there are so many, you know, every time you look at somebody's work, you can kind of find different examples of, you know, different, because it's such a common technique to use, but everyone does it in such different ways. It's really quite amazing.
It's quite reassuring to know that you don't have to facet, which will probably make Maria laugh. I'm quite reassured that it encompasses sort of scratching designs as well.
What's facet? Sorry, what's facet?
Oh, when you do stuff like these chops, you chop pieces away, and this was something that this lady Emily Mayer at Forest Row was teaching,
okay.
where she takes really precision slices and from thrown pieces, and she does. I've got a little thingy of her. I was terrible at faceting, which made Maria laugh, because look at, basically in the end she let me leave one of my pieces without faceting it because I kept going through them.
Well, I didn't want to bring up Emily Myers because I felt that it was traumatic for you, Claire. So I didn't want to cause some PTSD for you.
Yes, well, I'm having a flashback.
I mean, this is as close to faceting as I've come, which is this is a local clay pot that I fired so high that it basically boiled. But just, you know, faceting can be, you know, any kind of like carving away chunks of clay. But
it's like Kirinuki.
Sorry. They all sort of flow into one to the other. Kirinuki and faceting and carving, they're all kind of part of this. It's just cutting bits of clay away in different ways. So yeah, there's it's like you know, a sort of umbrella term, isn't it, for so many different techniques. I know at least Jenny and Maria have this book.
Ooh, carve your clay. That's maybe what I need. Not. I don't want.
What did you think, Jenny? What did you think of it? Did you like it?
Let me remind myself. Yes.
It's very it goes through each of the different types of techniques, so it's very clear in that.
It's a good inspiration book again. I mean, a lot of these books are for inspiration, aren't they? That sort of, it'll be the trigger. Something triggers an idea and go, oh, I can apply that to something. I think for the illustrator mind, there's that copy and paste kind of effect, if you know what I mean, Claire.
Yes.
And depends on what your hand is like, whether repetition movement helps your hands or repetition is not helpful to your hands. I think there's an element of that as well. For me, that's how I look at it. So some of the scratch markings away of things allows for that, because I get a bit of RSI now from having used computers for so long. And I find that if something's too repetitive and too formal, by the time I've got to the very end, I've got a gap, or I've got over too much of a gap, or not enough of a gap. I find that very frustrating. Whereas with scratching, you can fill little areas and get away with things. You can sort of morph it to your style, so to speak. So there's an element of, I suppose it depends on what your personality is like as well.
I mean, some of this, I don't know if you can see very clearly. Some of it is very mathematical. It looks like quite you'd have to plan it out and make sure and measure everything very carefully, whereas I prefer to be a bit more freehand, only because I like maths and I would get it wrong. And I like with this fluting, even with that, I would get to, you know, round to the bit where it joins up and there would be half a one or one big one. So how she does it, so I mean, I guess maybe you can get a sense that one is bigger than another there, but you know, it's so beautifully done, whereas I prefer to be a bit more I think that's what I really like about Yo Tom's work, is he's got a sense of a looseness to it. It's not so, you know, tight. This is a mug that I made.
Love that.
And
I like it.
Thank you. And it was really just, it's white porcelain with my dark slip over the top, which I then scratched these little lines in. But you can see, you know, some of them are thicker than others.
But I like that. That to me has personality in it.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah. I mean, I enjoy making it, you know, whereas if I had to make sure that each one was evenly spaced and each, I'd go absolutely mad.
So we have that mug will be so useful. We have Thea's headmaster, whenever he does a speech or an assembly, they work out how many he says. So there's a little tally marking of and that would be a great mug. So it's like 1, 2, 3 and then and then and it's just, you know, so we always mark it out whenever we have to do a speech day with him or anything online. We've been tallying it up as we've been going along.
Take a leather hard mug with you and
exactly.
Yeah. Teacher, thank you, sorted.
Yeah, with this, it's I like the looseness of it, you know, and that appeals to me. But I'm aware that I'm slightly hiding behind that, you know, because I know I can't make it tidy.
I don't think it's hiding though. I
really
don't.
I don't want to.
No, exactly. That's what I mean about personality.
Thank you.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I went through. Have I told you much about a project I did with Imogen De Sapia, who is she's a weaver, and I was I did a project where I was kind of taking elements of her work as my inspiration. So that's where these pieces sort of came from. And so I did some tests. So this was sort of one of my initial tests. It was really about the warp and the weft. So if you can imagine this being kind of a piece of textile, and you get these kind of lines from. Have a look on my website under collaborations. You'll see exactly where this sort of came from. But this is a speckled stoneware. With my dark slip over the top, and then I carved in. But these were quite chunky lines, and so I wanted something a bit more delicate. So then, so this piece here was me trying different thicknesses and trying different. So the thing with this sort of thing for me, it was about trying different tools, like was it Jenny you were saying about the consistent, was it Claire, sorry, or Mandy, the consistency of
Jenny about the
lines. Yeah. You know, it's then finding the right tool that creates the line that appeals to you. So this part here was me sort of scratching away so that it was mostly white but with leaving a bit of black. But the slip or the glaze over the top almost obliterated the design. So that's another thing to think about, is kind of what the glaze will do, which is interesting about Yo Tom's piece, is that the glaze is thin. You can the one I've got at home, it feels glazed, but the glaze is so thin, you can see it's runny, that it doesn't obliterate the color and the design underneath. So that's a thing to think about. I did ones where the contrast wasn't so high. So this is kind of like high contrast, black and white, kind of, or grey and white. And I did ones where this was the speckled stoneware, but with just a bit of white porcelain slip. But mainly it was just using the glaze to pool into the and not being fussy about the glaze going all the way in. So you can see a sort of little peep of the colour of the clay underneath. So that was quite nice. But then, and I did also then kind of practice with different smaller lines as well. And I've got a test tile here that I did. This was from a totally different thing, but this was just me drawing a tree to see how, you know, looking at Jo Walker's, you know, wonderful pieces where she's drawn from nature. You can't see this very well because again the glaze has kind of slightly obliterated the design, But I thought I'd have a go. This is kind of, I didn't pursue it because I didn't think it was very me. But that was sort of thinking about carving away. And I've got a piece here where
I like that.
Do you?
That's lovely. I really like that. Those nice veils of colour, and then that little sort of hit of the type. That's really nice.
Yeah,
I like a lot.
Yeah, this was it came about because of my the pieces that I was making with seeds, where I rolled in seeds and the seeds burnt away, and I thought I'd see what it looked like to make pieces where they weren't seeds, but it sort of was inspired by that. I just wanted to make really subtle little marks, and in some places it's like where it's white slip here, these are more subtle than where it's on a dark slip. So that contrast is really important when you're incising clay, that it really makes a difference. Like the same sort of incisions here, or kind of carving away here as it is here, but it looks very different.
Elaine, don't give up on that. Keep. I think that's lovely. There's something really magical about that.
Oh, thank you.
What they remind me of is sort of like stormy skies with murmurations of birds.
Yeah,
they're really beautiful, aren't they? They're very sort of like landscapey.
Yeah, I must admit, I agree as well. Completely, that's what went through my mind.
Is it?
Yeah.
I really like those.
I do.
Well, I wasn't sure because I mean, Jenny, you've seen my pieces with the seeds. And this was sort of an experiment to sort of see what it felt like to imitate that, and I think I came away from it preferring the seeds because they had that random effect.
Yeah, I understand that, but what you've achieved there is just as lovely. It's just another take on it. It's another journey, isn't it?
It really is. They're
but
both different but lovely. Yeah.
They complement as well, which is lovely.
Yeah. Well, they're very natural and inspired by nature. So you've got like the sky and it sort of reminds me of a stormy sky, and then you've got the grounding of the seeds and the more sort of I really like it.
Oh, thank you. Well, I mean, it is something I want to keep doing, especially the layering of the dark and the light, and the fact that this is unglazed. It's glazed on the inside, but I really like unglazed porcelain now. That and it's a lot easier.
It kind of takes away when you fire stuff, because I always prefer looking at the glaze when it's matte and unfired, and then when it glazes when it's fired it looks completely different color, different surface quality, everything. I like the matte, but it's very hard to find nice matte glazes, isn't it? They're very rare.
It takes a bit of investigating, and glaze can really, I mean, it just vastly changes a piece, doesn't it, in terms of, I mean, you can see from this how wrong this glaze is for the piece, and just getting that, it's a whole extra kind of work.
Literally makes or breaks it, doesn't it, the glaze?
Just getting that one that's just right, and so this one, without the glaze, the color would be this color, but this glaze gives it a sort of milkiness to it.
It's a bit like that lady Yo Tom, isn't it, that piece? It's lovely. It just I mean, I think that's slightly why I didn't sort of pursue more of this sort of surface decoration all over, was I didn't want to be too close to other people. But I mean, thinking about the glaze and getting the glaze right, like on this piece here, this actually wasn't carved. This was me pressing some sort of twigs, I think,
into the clay and then scraping away, that kind of inlay technique. And this has got a sort of semi-matte, soft, sort of satiny glaze on this bit, and a thicker one here, and you completely lose the design with the thicker glaze. So getting that right is tricky. This is a piece, I don't know whether you can easily see. I carved away the whole, sort of lines into the whole surface of this when it was leather hard. So creating this sort of soft texture, and it sort of reminded me of some jewelry techniques. You know, with using a burr tool, you can create these kind of lines. So this was actually inspired by Amanda Doughty's jewelry. But I just thought I'd show that because it's, you know, this is carving where it's across the whole surface to create a texture rather than a pattern. So have any of you tried it? Have you, you know, how have you, I mean, Claire, you must have, and, you know, Mandy, Jenny?
Yeah, I've done bits, but not with the slips. I haven't done a sgraffito. Well, I did, yeah, sort of, but not successfully.
I used to do the Mishima type thing, where I used to do these tattoo mugs that were where I'd inlay the slip and then bisque fire them and then use watercolor glazes, but they took ages, and I'd sometimes break the piece because I did it all freehand. But I've had some ceramic decals made now for our open houses this time, because they were always quite popular, and I used to have Brighton rocks and things like that on them. They're a bit, I don't know why, they went well in open houses. It kept me in clay. But this time I've done sort of like the decals, because it took a long time, and I'd often break the handle off by accident or something, because I'd attach the handles, and the sort of the success rate kind of was iffy with the failure rate, and especially if the bottom cracked or something after doing all the sort of drawing on them.
Yeah. I mean, it's a lot of, it can be a lot of work, and looking at the amount of detail in Yo Tom's pieces, it's an incredible amount of work. And I looked on, I tried to find where you could buy her work, and it was quite difficult. She doesn't seem to have her own website. She's on Instagram and Facebook, but I couldn't find her website. But she has some work at New Ashgate Gallery in Farnham, and there was one of those bottles with decoration all over was 160, and I thought, actually that's cheap for the amount of work that must have gone into that.
Must have taken her hours to
when
do
you think that, like, you're right, Claire, you know, when some of them are gonna crack or, you know, not succeed, you know, it's a lot of work.
Wow, gosh. Yeah, you don't seem to get an awful lot of return, do you, with some sort of creative things? Like, you know, I think you put a lot, you've got to love what you do, because the amount of effort that goes into some things for the return isn't like any other industry, is it? That's like starving artist, I suppose.
Yeah, I remember when I was a new graduate, I was showing it at Handmade in Britain, which was a craft show that at the time was on at Chelsea Town Hall, and as part of being a new graduate showing there, they had a sort of a very brief mentoring thing, and the guy running the show, there were different makers from different disciplines in the little group, and he was talking about, you know, how you have to build in wastage into your assessment of, you know, how you can make a profit. I get it now. And and he was, you know, saying to some of the artists, you have to consider, you know, 30 to 40% wastage, things going wrong or things not coming out. And he looked at me and he said, but in ceramics, that's at least 60%.
Oh God.
Wow.
I didn't realize that ceramics was like so separate from the other crafts in that respect. I knew that things go wrong all the time in ceramics, but to think that it's a thing that you could lose up to 2/3 or more of your work is failure for some reason or another. It was a bit of a shock. But,
and it's I think Pete was saying today that our electricity bill's gone up £130 a month.
Really?
What?
Yeah. I was trying to work out, because I've got that knitted collaboration thing, and Becky's just come back with some really unrealistic figure about how much time it's, she said an hourly rate plus the cost of her wool plus how long it's taken. And I was thinking, flipping heck, like one of the bowls was 110 after she'd finished, and I haven't even factored in all the time that I've mixed the slip and tested the colours and did all the firings. Makes them probably more valuable to us than probably what they would be to anybody else. But I think
that's a really that's a really tricky thing, because it's tough enough to think about how many hours you've put into the ceramics and calculate that, and it usually comes out as unaffordable. But with that, you've got two craftspeople's time. It's going to double the cost, the making cost of anything that you work on.
When she was talking about getting €55 an hour for yoga teaching, I was thinking, this isn't going to work.
You should stick to
the yoga.
Yeah, I'm not sure that I see that collaboration is really working for you, Claire. I don't
know. I feel a bit, because I don't think she's really factored in. I don't think she values the time that I've put into it. I don't think she realises the amount of time and effort that I've put into what she sent me as well. I think she's thinking that she's putting in a lot more, but I don't really see it that way, because I've had to spend a lot on materials and firings, and probably wear and tear on my kiln, and a trip to the hospital with a slip in my eye as well. And I did actually have quite a cool idea, because I kept finding lost gloves on walks. And I thought, actually, it would mean more to me to do a selection of lost gloves, because I just kept finding them one day. I found like 6, and Pete wouldn't let me pick them up because of COVID. But I was thinking a sort of library of lost knitted gloves would be
such a lovely idea. That would work so well. It's really poignant as well, and it's
it's the fact that
they already exist in the world, these gloves, and so you haven't had to think about somebody making them. But the only thing
that's just found, hasn't it?
I think it's a lovely idea. Unfortunately, there is a slight technical boring pitch, which is that you won't necessarily know what they're made of.
If they're synthetic,
then that'd be a problem. But I love the idea. I really do. I think that's gorgeous.
Maybe one day, because there was this one walk and I found 6, and the idea came to me, and the kids and people were like, no, Mum, you can't pick it up, it might have COVID. So I was thinking, darn it. There was one that somebody had stuck on a twig that was like that with the thing. Somebody had taken a yellow one and just stuck it on a branch as if it was giving the finger, which I thought was really funny. But
well, I'm gonna do a bit of I've gone share screen, see if I can wake up my phone to come back on. Yeah, it's done this before. I think, you know, when it goes to sleep, it sort of drops the connection. Oh,
there you go.
yes, we want it to be landscape though, don't we? Why is it?
I think. Oh, is it?
You and I knocking heads.
Yeah.
It's annoying that it's that way round, so it's better if it.
Did she? Elaine didn't see that. We should send her a screenshot. We do it again. She didn't get to see that. Shall I quickly try and screenshot it? Hang on.
No.
Oh no, I've lost everybody. That didn't work. Hang on.
Oh, of the moment.
I can manage. Oh yeah, shall we try again one more time?
One more time.
Did you see that, Kay? We're all leaning over.
That's very good. I think you're in different positions to how you are on my screen though. So your heads went.
Oh, did it not work?
One going the other. But I'm sure Maria will enjoy it when she sees this.
I've actually switched off by now.
Look, I really we should do some actual scraps. I've got some tools here. Well, the different tools. This is kind of for faceting. I never really got along with that very well. But these are good. So these are the kinds of tools that I've used for doing sgraffito, and they're just really small, like little turning tools, but they're you know, you can get them in different shapes. So that one's got a little sort of rounded shape, so you could create different effects. This one would be the sort of thing that you might use if you were doing a Halima Cassell type, you know, big gouges out of things. You wouldn't want to use that for small things. A little knife, I guess, and this is a turning tool, but this would be quite good. But this is an actual sgraffito tool.
That's good, Elaine. I like it.
Yeah, I just
nice.
borrowed it from Sylvia because I couldn't find mine, but I just put a white background behind it. But it's got for some reason it's the right way round for you, but it's like back to front for me. So, but yeah, that's quite a nice little tool. That's deliberately.
Where did you that? What's that one, Elaine? Because I've never been able to find one with a point that fine. What one? Do you remember where you got it?
I'll ask Sylvia where she got it, because I don't remember where I got mine. But she just bought this recently, so
that's very cool.
Yeah, I have to say I kind of favour these loop tools.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I thought I'd try and do a bit, but really my favourite thing is just doing little lines. So well, I can sort of, so these ones I did with this, and it's really, you know, you get that kind of softness of the Sacha Wardell lines. Do you know what I mean? When, you know, where that kind of, it has that sort of softness because the clay is well, it's heading to leather hard. It's halfway between sort of cheese, my favorite cheese hard and leather hard, but it's still got some kind of softness to it, which I really like. But with this one, I don't know, because it's Sylvia's tool, I'm gonna, yeah, you've got a sort of different shape to it. This is more of a, whereas this is rounded at the top and then thinner at the bottom. This has got more of a sort of teardrop shape.
Oh yeah.
Or no, not a teardrop. I don't know. It's more of a rice, I guess.
What's the other end of that one? Is there like a stick on the other end?
This is just a point. It's quite sharp.
So you could do very fine, scratchy lines. Because that lady, what's the name? Tom. I can't think of her first name.
Yeah.
Tom. Yeah. She her lines are super fine, aren't they? Like with a needle tool or something.
Yeah,
it's like a darning needle kind of feeling to it, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think the thing is to experiment with different thicknesses of tool. I mean, I've just used the point to do this line, and what I'll have to do is, because the clay is still a little bit sticky, I can't brush away the sort of small little burrs of clay that come up. So what I need to do is leave those and not attempt to brush them away. And that's important if the clay is still tacky, because you then end up just sort of smearing them in. But this tool's quite good because it's actually it's pulling the clay away from the surface, whereas the point is just scratching in. It's not actually lifting any of the clay. I don't know.
As a question mark, at the moment you're making a straight line. So, and it's control, isn't it? It's like a pencil. It's the different weights that you have within a pencil, from your Fs to your Hs to your HBs and on onwards. It's getting the curvature, I suppose. If you want straight lines is one thing, but it's getting curvature and those smooth organic lines in something, isn't it?
Yeah. I mean, I think,
is it practice and skill at the end of the day?
Yeah, I mean, in a way, I can't demonstrate anything more, because I'm more of a straight line kind of, that this repetitive sort of line making that's like stitch has been something I'm so drawn to do it, and it's such a lovely kind of thing to do. But I think, do you mean in terms of like if you were doing more of a sort of flower shape kind of thing?
Yeah, so if you wanted to do a petal, there you go.
That's sometimes where the loop ones work a bit better, because when I was doing the more intricate designs, the loop takes the clay away, rather than with a scratchy tool like a pencil, you get a lot more prickly edges, whereas with the loop tools, it peels the piece out and you get a long kind of strip.
Something almost calligraphic about this, isn't there?
I was finding that as I was using this just now, it was sort of digging in a bit more. So I sort of lost a bit at that point, whereas this tool was actually
a bit more easier to draw with.
Yeah, this is actually, I mean, it's designed for this very purpose, so that's really good.
It's good the way it has an angle as well, because it's got that angle to it, which is really nice.
It's, I mean, I'm not really, but then what I would love to do is then go in and do little details, and probably with a really with the point rather than same tool, so that I can get a nice bit of detail going. But yeah, I mean, I think the thing is that this is very basic, but you can see from other people's work how much you can do in terms of, say looking at Vicky Lindo's, she will have taken away some of the clay around the design that she's drawn, so that you get this
almost like lino carving, isn't it? What she does.
Yeah,
like lino cutting, isn't it?
It's enormously satisfying. I've never done lino cutting, but I think I can see.
Oh, lots! Lino cutting's great.
Yeah, I like it.
I need to do it.
And sort of it's like the way that you get the texture, isn't it? By creating little marks to make it 3D on the lino as well. It's very good.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not taking a lot of care to make the texture that I'm leaving behind that nice. And this is actually showing me that this is too soft, this clay. for this particular technique, because I'm getting some smearing of the color. So I think with it being a little bit drier, it would actually come away more cleanly. But you can see the very different kind of effect you can get if I isolate this flower. It's going to create quite a different kind of a look to it, isn't it? But it's interesting. What I think is interesting is surface decoration. Until I did this collaboration with Imogen, and started creating these this. So this was really kind of the first time that I started looking at surface decoration. Until then, it was very, very minimal. The best I could muster in terms of actually decorating a pot was. Oh, why is it okay on my screen? It's gone, but this was as much as I would do. While it was on the wheel, I would just carve some little lines into the rim, and it's so minimal. And I just never really wanted to get into it, because I just thought I'm not that kind of person. I tended to just work on solid glazes, and so it was all about the color and the form, and I never got into decoration until I started sort of doing this sort of thing. So what do you guys think? Are you more? I mean, Claire, you've done a lot of surface decoration, but Jenny, I think your work is more kind of about form and texture, but kind of the randomness of the material texture. What do you think about surface? Especially Jenny, I'm interested because you've had your graphic design degree career. Has that put you off the idea of surface decoration, maybe? Or I
suppose it has to a certain extent. Yeah, you've probably hit it there for me. Is that I like something that's expressive and random, and I've done lots of creating images. I don't want to create images now. I just want to create.
Yeah,
it's quite a strange way to describe it. It's that what you're doing is a very black and white thing as well, and there's a very sort of stark contrast between the two textures. And then there's a lovely fluidity about what you're doing right now. It's very mesmerizing to watch, I must admit. It's sort of like it's sending me slowly to sleep. It's like, oh, paint with Bob. Sorry, no, not in a horrible way. In a beautiful way, in a very beautiful way. I think there's something quite Grecian as well about it, isn't it? Was it the Greeks or was it the Romans that did that?
Yeah,
that kind of a texture. I don't know. I haven't really had enough play with it to sort of say, is it expressive enough for me at the moment? I'm not too sure, but the work I've seen that you show me sort of shows that there are different styles out there. There's nothing preconceived about. I shouldn't have my preconceived ideas about it as well. I think that's.
Yeah, I mean, I certainly have had preconceived ideas, and that's why I sort of shied away from it. But I think, yeah, I mean, looking at the makers that we look, from Halima Cassel, whose pieces are carved so heavily that it is the form, the carving becomes the form, to Vicky Lindo, where it's sort of the form and the decoration, in the cats, for example, the cat is the form and the decoration. To Yo Tom, where it's, or Joe Walker, where the decoration is just surface, and it could almost be on any shape. And yet they're all wonderful. So, it's, but what I find I really like is actually creating a bit of surface texture. So you know, and that this is where, you know, where this piece sort of came in. There we go. Where the carving created the texture, but I could still keep that sort of random element to it by not being it's almost like wood carving, you know, and you like some wood carvers now are kind of keeping this really soft texture, and having the slip, actually I've realized is that I can leave some of the areas. I don't have to completely carve away.
It gives it a nice depth, doesn't it? Because you've got the contrast of the dark creating the shadows.
Yeah, yeah. But I think I really, see, you mustn't brush it away like I'm doing there, because it just brushes in. But yeah, I don't know. It's funny how like some things that you do when you're making are so instinctive. So I did that flower, but I really got quite bored with it, and now I'm back to doing little lines again.
What's interesting is the way you've graduated it from very white, and now you're graduating it. So you're starting to understand what you can achieve in that black and white tonal effect.
Yeah.
And I like that thought process that you've got, that at some point it will flip itself, and it's gone from very, very white to, but yeah, the reaction to brush away is a bit like brushing rubbings away when you've done a pencil drawing, and you've got to be careful about smudging. And that's what you're doing, is smudging.
It needs to be a lot thicker.
You need a little brush or something like that, just to sort of just pick it out almost. It needs to be drier, although the clay does feel really nice to carve in this state. I could get a little but I imagine you could create tonal effects the deeper that you went and the thicker markings that you make, so that in a under a light you'd see those marks again. And it's that, is it a decision to use a color, is it a decision not to use a color, and just mark into something without, and it's the texture itself is creating the pattern.
No, I mean, I thought I was going to demonstrate lots of different techniques for you today, but I keep doing the same thing. But
do you think it's a bit like mosaic, Mandy? You know, when you're looking at the flower and the pieces, I was thinking of your mosaics as well, because like
I know what you mean.
Patterns
I know what you mean. I can't get. I am astounded at the similarity with, because I love a lot of the art that we've got are lino cuts. So it is sort of like the mosaic, but it's the wood engraving and the lino cuts. It's that really it's so like that. And it's funny, I got into doing sgraffito because I can't do representational art, because I can't. It's not a skill I have. And so sgraffito was brilliant. And I also like lines, and by sort of, doing sgraffito in different slips and whatever, you can get those lovely contrasts. And in fact, I was actually just thinking there are two pieces. One of the very first pieces I ever did when I first started pottery was a press molded, it looks kind of better than it really is, but it's a press molded plate, and then a layer of black slip put over the plate. And then I got an image of a sort of an artichoke. I placed that image over the slip, and I pencil outlined all the detail. I then took off the paper template, and I then it was almost like tracing something. I'll send you a photo of it, but it was almost like tracing something. So I then had something which I would never have been able to draw freehand, and I wouldn't do now because it wouldn't feel authentic. But then I was just kind of trying to work out how I could surface decorate. And then I went over it, sgraffitoed through the slip, and then put a sort of I think it was a pale blue celadon or something. I'll send, it's downstairs, I'll send a photo when we finish. So, and that was really exciting to me, and it made me realise that by using slip and sgraffito, actually, you know, you could make amazing design. Oh, look at Elaine. It's so cool.
Elaine's going mad with her.
Oh,
Yeah.
chrysanthemum phase.
Brilliant.
Yeah. What I'm liking about here is using this rounded tool. It's become more about the shapes in the clay than it is about the design. Did you see what I mean?
Yeah.
Not kind of creating. It's just about the carving away. But I love hearing. I'd love to see your piece, Mandy. That you.
Yeah, I'll take. There are two things, two bowls I'll show you, both using sgraffito, but very, very different. I'll ping them over as soon as we've finished.
Yeah. Well, I think I'm gonna stop there, because otherwise I'll just
No clay left.
Yeah, you'll be surrounded by a pile of little shavings.
Yes, it is creating a bit of a mess. Yeah, I mean, the only other thing I was going to say was that you can, I don't know if you know, I'm going to have to go back to this. This is bone dry, and I did some very rubbish scrapings on there, but you can scrape directly into, which you can't see. Can you see?
Yeah.
But you can carve into bone dry, but the thing is to wear a mask. But you get a very different line from that. You don't get the softness that you've got, you know, with these. But yeah, it's interesting. I mean, it's funny that there's this sort of resistance to surface decoration from me, and you know, from some of you as well, because it's almost like
too contrived sometimes, isn't it? It's nice to have a bit of random spontaneity to something, rather than it starts to take on a bit of a commercial contrived effect, doesn't it? I
think you've got to have a good design in your head and be able to execute it, and it's, you know, it's a totally different thing. It's like you've painted and you've done it on a pot. But I you know, and I think that's why I preferred the seed approach to creating those little speckles on surfaces rather than the scraping away. I preferred the look of it, because to me there's this you know, although I do love it, it felt quite,
it's really nice. I do like it.
It's a little bit more
deliberate.
That's the word.
You also think that the seeds have a story to the pot itself, and then the slip and applying it, and then the burning off. They're all part of it. Those seeds, they're part of that journey that it's had. So it's the storytelling in it. When someone says, "Oh, explain to me your technique," and you go, "I just made some random marks." Whereas with the seeds, it's a case of, well, I went on a walk and I found these seeds and they really inspire me. And I love dandelions and I've been collecting them and I've got this massive big pot. And you know, it embellishes the pot itself then, doesn't it? And it becomes a lot more personal to you. Whereas sometimes random marks, it's like, well, anybody can make a random mark, can't they? That's what's going through your head.
But not everybody has. And that's the thing about, you know, that art the way it is book. It's like when you look at something in retrospect, you might think, oh, well, I could do that, but you didn't. And the person who did first did. And I actually think they look quite landscapey. I think they fit well with the seeds, because they look like visual sort of landscapes to me. Skies, like a sky, but
well, I think it's that, in a way, what I've learned from my exploration, just doing little lines and really nothing else, has been not to be so afraid of surface decoration, and not to resist it, because you know, I've been quite resistant. It's like, oh no, I don't do that. So it's interesting to sort of have a foray into that world, and something to try and sort of see what develops. But
it is a funny one, isn't it? Because when I did the mugs, I'm not sure that it's very me, because they're hand painted, then made into decals, and they look a bit too commercial for me. It's a bit of an uncomfortable line, isn't it, when you, like Mandy, you were saying about the artichoke and drawing it, it's almost like you feel that it's got to be absolutely perfect or amazing, or you don't want to go there. Kind of stamps are kind of a nice comfort zone for me, because you get the texture and the effects of the glazes, which I like and you get a bit of randomness with that too. But
I suppose there's that naive art, isn't there? As an illustrator, you can tell a skilled artist is someone who's thinks they're good at it. So I think there's a little bit of the naive artist in there, and I can understand the artichoke analogy is that you want it to look like an artichoke so people understand what it is. Yeah, if someone says, "Well, what's that?" and you go, "It's an artichoke," and they go, "Really?" It's that feeling of fear of criticism, isn't it? To a certain extent, it's a bit like,
and it's how do you go with the artichoke? Do you want it to be painterly, or if it's lines, it's got to look like a serious sort of line cut, or it's too much of a. It's very worrying, isn't it, when you draw?
Who's the artist you showed us? And her work was in blue, and she had the celadon on the inside.
Jo Walker. Yeah.
So her work is lovely and very graphic.
But it's almost too formal, isn't it? It's almost too
predictable.
I wouldn't buy it, because like we were saying, I can see that it would appeal to a lot of people, and also I can see the talent that's gone into it. That some of the lines are a bit Matisse-y, aren't they? Those line drawings, and then she'll take one bit and then she'll do a bit more detail. But what I admire is something loose and the opposite of probably the graphics.
I agree.
But then is that us fighting the graphics ourselves? Is that our reaction to something that we've had to do?
You like the opposite
environment. And now we're going, well, I don't have to do that.
That's really interesting about you too, having come from that background, but not wanting. Yeah, I actually bought a piece of Joe's, but I gave it to my dad and stepmom, because I knew they'd like it. So no, it wasn't because I liked it for me. Although I do really admire the skill.
I admire. I mean, I would love to be able to draw like that. I look at that and I go, oh my God, to be able to draw like that. But yeah, I wouldn't want to own it.
Yeah.
You guys can draw. That's the thing. You can draw. You just don't practice it enough, probably, to give yourself the validation.
Absolutely. No, that's and that is true, Mandy, is that you can. I spent my whole life saying I can't draw. And then I wanted to do ceramics at university, and I thought I'm going to have to be able to draw because they won a sketchbook out of me. So I went to life drawing classes for 2 years and learned how to draw. And at the end of it, I thought, actually, no, it's not people can draw and people can't draw. You know, that would be like saying there are people who can play tennis and people who can't, and they'll never be able to play tennis. It's like, well, no, you just need to practice. I can't play tennis, but I'm not saying that I could win Wimbledon. Doesn't matter how much I'd practice, I wouldn't win Wimbledon. There are people out there who, you know, can reach those heights. But if I really wanted to, I could play tennis pretty well. I just do not to.
You can.
And I think the same with drawing and with any skill. It's a skill, not a gift.
Yeah. No. I also think that in schools they tend to say you tend to think that you can't draw, because when I went to art college, my lecturer said, forget everything you've ever learned. There aren't lines around everything. Everything's sort of light and shade. Everyone can paint and draw. It's sort of like you have the confidence knocked out of you if something isn't how they think it should look. and and I think it's that confidence thing at school. Sometimes they take that away, and I think everybody's got the ability to sort of be expressive in drawing.
No, I agree.
Well, that comes back to believing in yourself, and that comes back to the anxiety where we first started the conversation this morning with, is that believing in yourself and believing in your own ability, and not listening to the other voice going on in your head, but to listen with your heart and go forward.
And other people is none of your business. Other people's opinions are artichoke, and none of your business.
Snap off.
But also the other thing it does, if you can't do something, if you can't do sort of representational art, it also makes you very crafty at looking at other ways of kind of mark making and what you can do. And actually that is what I now really admire people who can do things one way, but it means that you develop, I think, a little bit more of a personal skill when you need to get round that fact.
I remember when I became graphics editor, at the paper, and I remember saying to quite a few people, I don't think I can do this. I don't think I can do this. I don't think I'm capable. Oh my God, I've got to go from doing 2-column graphics to 16-column graphics. How the hell am I going to do it? They all came out with the same attitude. Bullshit, Jen. Just bullshit it. And you will get through it. And it's true, I did.
No,
if you can't do it one way, do it another way, and it'll still look the same because it's your interpretation.
You're both right, Jenny. Absolutely. You know, it's one time when I was learning how to teach librarians, and I said to the teacher that I was taking over from, I said, I actually don't know what some of these things are that I'm going to be teaching, and she said, it's okay, all you have to do is one step ahead. Like that's been my whole, that's been one step ahead of the students. It's been my whole approach, and you probably noticed. It's like, quick, how do you do that? Oh, okay, right, I can do that now. But you're right. No, so bullshitting is important. But Mandy, what you said was important. I've forgotten what you said. What did you say? Oh, about creativity. Because if you feel like there's a whole area that you can't do, but you still feel this real creative urge, you want to do a creative thing, so you find a way and you create something that's different, that's abstract, that's your own expression and doesn't fit.
But I think more yourself, because it's not something that you've learned or you're trying to interpret. It becomes much more, I think, yourself, much more authentic in a way. I think.
No, I agree with Mandy, definitely.
I think it's about allowing that to come out, and and if you're feeling like, oh well, drawing means I have to be able to accurately represent that thing that's in front of me in a beautiful and accurate way. If you're constrained by that, then you're not going to actually be creative. Whereas if you're thinking, okay, well, I'm not going to do that, I'm going to do this, and I'm going to just do it my way, then you do, the creativity pours out. But
and that's why I think Mandy's point is very, very good, because that's why I came back into this, or have come through the chain that I have to come to this point. I don't have to justify it. If I want to draw it my way, I'm drawing it my way. You don't have to follow me if you don't want to. Whereas in a commercial environment, you had to go in a certain direction because that's what was expected. So this is no preconceived in this. That's the beauty of it, is that whatever you do is gorgeous. And it comes back to self-belief and love.
Yeah, and that is a brilliant thing. Thank you, Jenny. Well, thank
we're all fabulous.
We are all fabulous.
Yeah,
we are.
We've got to keep telling ourselves that, though, haven't we?
Yeah, and geniuses, because we have migraines.
Yeah,
we use both sides.
Oh dear. Yeah. Well, it's been a pleasure and an honor again to see you all, and thank you.
Thank you.
We'll come back next week, and I'll make up some more things to pretend I know about.
Yeah.
It's been a treat.
It's been a real treat seeing you all again.
Last week. Really
it's been good.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Well, we've missed you,
Maria, lots of love.
If Maria is
Yeah.
at the end of the recording, congratulations.
It'll be a
Yeah.
miracle.
Take care.
Lots of love to you all.
Bye, guys.
you soon.
Bye.
Bye bye, love.
Take care.
Bye.
Bye bye.